The crimson emergency lights cast long shadows across the bridge of the UNS Defiance as Captain Marcus Chen stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The numbers were impossible, yet they were real. 17,000 enemy vessels had emerged from hyperspace, their dark hulls blotting out the stars around Earth's solar system. His own fleet numbered exactly 17 ships. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The Kaltharan Dominion had finally come to finish what they started 3 centuries ago, when they first arrived through the dimensional rifts. Back then, humanity had fought valiantly, but primitive kinetic weapons and chemical rockets were no match for energy shields and gravity manipulators. The war had lasted 7 brutal years before Earth's government signed the Submission Accords, agreeing to serve as a resource colony in exchange for survival. Marcus watched as his communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Martinez, received transmission after transmission from the approaching armada. Her face grew paler with each message. "Captain, they're broadcasting on all frequencies. The Dominion High Command is demanding immediate surrender of all remaining human military assets. They're giving us 60 minutes to comply before they begin orbital bombardment." The bridge fell silent, except for the steady hum of life support systems. Marcus looked around at his crew, seeing fear in their eyes but also something else: determination. These 17 ships represented the last free humans in the galaxy, the survivors of a secret project that had been developing in the outer colonies while Earth remained under Kaltharan rule. Commander David Kim, his tactical officer, cleared his throat. "Sir, the odds are approximately 1,000 to 1 against us. Even with our technological improvements, the mathematics are overwhelming." Marcus nodded slowly, then activated the ship-wide communication system. "This is Captain Chen speaking to all vessels in the Liberation Fleet. I won't lie to you about what we're facing. The Kaltharan Dominion has brought their full military might to crush us. They outnumber us by margins that should make victory impossible." He paused, looking out at the sea of enemy ships growing larger on the view screen. "But there's something they don't understand about humanity, something they've never understood in all their centuries of conquest. We don't fight because we expect to win. We fight because it's right. Today we show them why that makes all the difference." The first sign that humanity was more than the Kaltharans expected came 3 hours into the battle. Dr. Elena Vasquez was hunched over her research terminal in the deepest levels of the scientific colony on Titan when the seismic sensors began registering impossible readings. The moon was shaking, but not from weapon impacts or industrial mining operations. Something was emerging from deep beneath the ice. Elena had been part of the Titan research project for 12 years, ever since the Kaltharans had permitted limited scientific exploration of the outer solar system. What they didn't know was that the research station was a cover for humanity's most ambitious undertaking since the Submission Accords. Hidden beneath kilometers of frozen methane and water ice, human scientists and engineers had been developing technologies that would have seemed like magic to their ancestors. The tremors intensified, and Elena's terminal displayed readings that should have been physically impossible. Energy signatures were spiking throughout the subsurface networks. Automated systems that had been dormant for decades were coming online. And most remarkably, massive structures were beginning their ascent through the ice. Dr. James Foster burst into the laboratory, his usually calm demeanor replaced by barely controlled excitement. "Elena, you need to see what's happening topside. The emergency protocols have activated. After 300 years, they're finally activating." Elena followed James through the winding corridors of the research station. The walls hummed with power as systems she had never seen before came to life. Hidden panels slid open to reveal control interfaces that bore no resemblance to standard human technology. The designs were elegant and organic, as if they had been grown rather than built. They reached the observation deck just as the first structure breached the surface. It rose like a metallic flower blooming in fast motion, its silver surfaces catching the distant light of Saturn. As it emerged fully from the ice, Elena could see that it was massive, easily the size of a city, with graceful spires and sweeping curves that seemed to defy conventional engineering. "James, what is this?" Elena whispered, watching as more structures began emerging across Titan's surface. The strategic placement was obvious now that she could see the pattern. They formed a perfect network of defensive positions covering the entire moon. James activated a communication panel that Elena had never noticed before. The interface responded to his touch with soft chimes and flowing displays of information. This is what our grandparents really built during the Reconstruction period. Everyone thought they were just rebuilding Earth's cities and infrastructure after the war. In reality, they were preparing for this day. The story James told Elena as they watched Titan transform around them was one that had been hidden for 3 centuries. In the years following Earth's defeat, while the Kaltharans focused on establishing their colonial administration and resource extraction operations, human engineers and scientists had been secretly developing revolutionary technologies. The public saw the construction of new cities and industrial facilities. The reality was far more ambitious. Dr. Maria Santos had been one of the lead researchers on the project. She appeared on Elena's screen through a secure communication link from Europa, where similar structures were emerging from beneath the ice. Maria's research station had been disguised as an atmospheric processing facility, but Elena could now see massive defense platforms rising behind her in the video feed. "Elena, what you're witnessing is the culmination of Project Renaissance," Maria explained. "When Earth surrendered, our leaders knew it was only a temporary setback. They initiated a plan that would span generations. While appearing to comply with Kaltharan demands, we've been developing adaptive technologies that could counter their advantages." The scope of the deception was breathtaking. Every major construction project in the outer solar system for the past 3 centuries had served a dual purpose. Mining operations on asteroids had hollow cores filled with automated manufacturing facilities. Scientific research stations were covers for weapons development programs. Even the tourist destinations on Mars concealed military training facilities beneath their entertainment complexes. Elena watched in amazement as the structures on Titan continued their transformation. What had appeared to be scientific equipment was reconfiguring itself into weapon systems unlike anything in the historical records. The energy readings she was detecting suggested power sources far more advanced than conventional fusion reactors. "How is this possible?" Elena asked. "The Kaltharans monitor everything. Their surveillance systems should have detected this level of construction." Dr. Foster smiled for the first time since Elena had known him. "They monitor what they understand. Our ancestors realized that the key to hiding from the Kaltharans was to think differently about technology. Instead of building machines, we grew them. Instead of using metals, we used programmable matter. Everything you see emerging was contained in seed form, waiting for the activation signal. The activation signal had come from Captain Chen's fleet. As soon as the liberation ships had engaged the Kaltharan armada, automated systems throughout the solar system had begun awakening. It was a coordinated response that had been planned down to the minute, timed to activate when humanity finally made its stand. Elena's terminal chimed with an incoming message from Earth. The transmission was coming from Dr. Rebecca Walsh, the director of the Global Reconstruction Initiative. Elena had heard of Dr. Walsh, of course, but she had assumed the woman was simply an administrator overseeing the rebuilding of Earth's cities. "This is Dr. Walsh, broadcasting to all Renaissance sites. Phase 1 activation is complete. All outer system defensive networks are now online. Initiating Phase 2 protocols. Surface teams, prepare for emergence." On Earth itself, the transformation was even more dramatic. In the ruins of major cities that the Kaltharans had left as monuments to human defeat, the ground began to split open. What emerged were not the primitive structures the invaders remembered, but gleaming towers that reached toward space. The broken concrete and twisted metal had been camouflage, hiding construction projects that made the Kaltharan orbital stations look crude by comparison. Lieutenant Colonel Alex Rodriguez was commanding one of the emergence operations in the ruins of New York. His team had been maintaining the facade of being archaeological researchers, documenting the destruction from the original war. In reality, they had been overseeing the construction of one of humanity's most advanced command centers, built entirely from materials that appeared to be rubble from the surface. "All teams, this is Rodriguez. The charade is over. Activate full systems and prepare for combat operations." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Alex watched as his research site transformed around him. The collapsed buildings straightened themselves, revealing their true nature as multi-story command and control facilities. The broken streets split apart to reveal launch bays for spacecraft that had been hidden for decades. The Kaltharan response was immediate and predictable. Orbital bombardment platforms began targeting the emerging structures with the same contempt they had shown for human defenses 3 centuries earlier. Their weapons were powerful enough to level mountains, and they had never encountered any material that could withstand a direct hit. The first bombardment struck the New York facility with enough energy to vaporize several city blocks. Alex and his team watched from their command center as the readings came in. The weapons had struck with perfect accuracy, delivering exactly the destructive force that Kaltharan calculations predicted would be necessary. The facility absorbed the entire attack without any detectable damage. The adaptive materials that formed its structure had been designed specifically to counter Kaltharan energy weapons. Instead of resisting the bombardment, they redirected it, channeling the massive energies into power systems that made the facility stronger with each attack. Similar results were being reported from emergent sites across Earth. The Kaltharans were learning that their most powerful weapons were ineffective against structures that could adapt and evolve in real time. Every attack provided more data for the defensive systems to analyze and counter. Dr. Michael Carter was monitoring the global situation from the primary command center beneath Geneva. His facility was the largest of the hidden installations, containing the central coordination systems for the entire Renaissance project. Michael had spent his entire career maintaining the illusion that Earth was a broken world, slowly rebuilding under Kaltharan supervision. "All sites report full activation," Michael announced to the assembled staff. "Defensive systems are operating within optimal parameters. The Kaltharan orbital bombardment is having negligible effect." Phase 3 authorization requested. The authorization came from an unexpected source. A figure appeared on the main display screen that none of them had seen for over 50 years. General Patricia Hayes had been the last commander of Earth's military forces when the planet surrendered. Everyone assumed she had died in the final battles, but the truth was far more complex. "This is General Hayes, speaking from Sanctuary Station. I'm authorizing Phase 3 activation. It's time to show our visitors what humanity has really been doing for the past 3 centuries. Sanctuary Station had been the most ambitious deception of all. The Kaltharans believed it was a prison facility where Earth's former military leaders were held in comfortable captivity. In reality, it was humanity's primary military command center, hidden in plain sight among the orbital platforms that the Kaltharans themselves had built. General Hayes had aged considerably, but her voice carried the same authority that had inspired Earth's defenders during the original war. "Citizens of Earth and the outer colonies, this is our moment. The Renaissance project is fully operational. We have capabilities that our enemies cannot comprehend, because they have never learned to adapt. Today, we take back our solar system." The third phase activation brought systems online that fundamentally changed the nature of the conflict. Hidden throughout the solar system were manufacturing facilities that had been growing and evolving for centuries. They began producing vessels that combined human creativity with technologies far beyond anything the Kaltharans possessed. Elena watched from Titan as the local facility began launching spacecraft. They were unlike anything in the historical records, appearing almost organic in their design. Their hulls seemed to flow like liquid metal, constantly shifting and adapting. The ships moved with grace that made Kaltharan vessels look clumsy and primitive. "Elena, this is incredible," James said, monitoring the tactical displays. "Our ships are engaging the Kaltharan patrol squadron, and they're not just holding their own. They're winning." The first space battle between Renaissance vessels and Kaltharan warships lasted only 17 minutes. The enemy squadron had consisted of 12 heavy cruisers, each one capable of destroying a planet's surface. They approached the Titan defensive network, expecting to crush the emerging human forces with overwhelming firepower. The Renaissance vessels met them halfway between Titan and Saturn's rings, where the Kaltharan ships relied on massive energy shields and devastating weapon systems. The human craft used adaptation and innovation. Their hulls absorbed weapon impacts and converted the energy to strengthen their own systems. Their weapons seemed to learn from each exchange, becoming more effective with every shot. Captain Lisa Park commanded the lead Renaissance vessel emerging from Europa. Her ship, designated Prometheus, had been grown rather than built, its systems designed to evolve in response to threats. Lisa had trained for this moment her entire life, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of commanding a vessel that seemed alive. "Prometheus to all Renaissance units, the Kaltharan patrol squadron is neutralized. No human casualties." All ships report systems functioning at optimal levels and continuing to improve. The news spread throughout the hidden networks of human civilization. For the first time in 3 centuries, humans had defeated Kaltharans in direct combat. But more than that, they had done so with technologies that seemed to violate everything the invaders understood about physics and engineering. Dr. Jennifer Liu was analyzing the battle data from the primary research facility on Mars. The hidden complex had been disguised as an atmospheric terraforming station, but its real purpose was developing the theoretical foundations for Renaissance technology. Jennifer had spent decades studying Kaltharan weaknesses and developing countermeasures. The psychological impact on the Kaltharan fleet is significant, Jennifer reported to the command network. Their tactical communications show confusion and disbelief. They're reporting our capabilities as impossible based on their understanding of human technology. The confusion was understandable. The Kaltharans had conquered dozens of species across the galaxy, and they had always followed the same pattern. Initial invasion, followed by systematic suppression of technological development, followed by gradual integration into the Dominion as a resource-producing colony. No species had ever developed advanced technology while under occupation. Commander Robert Kim was leading the emergence operations in the Pacific region, where humanity's most advanced shipbuilding facilities had been hidden beneath what appeared to be oceanic research stations. His teams had been studying marine biology while secretly constructing a fleet of vessels that could operate in space, atmosphere, and underwater with equal effectiveness. All Pacific facilities report successful emergence, Robert announced. We're launching the first wave of atmospheric defense squadrons. The Kaltharans are about to discover that Earth has more surprises than they anticipated. The atmospheric defense squadrons were another innovation that the Kaltharans hadn't expected. The invaders had always relied on orbital bombardment to suppress planetary resistance, but the Renaissance vessels could operate seamlessly in any environment. Ships emerged from the oceans and immediately engaged Kaltharan atmospheric fighters in aerial combat that defied conventional physics. Elena received a priority communication from Dr. Foster, who was coordinating with research teams throughout the outer system. Elena, we're receiving reports from Ceres, Vesta, and the other asteroid facilities. The entire belt is activating. The mining operations were covers for the largest manufacturing network in human history. The asteroid belt transformation was visible even from Titan. Across millions of cubic kilometers of space, facilities that had appeared to be simple mining operations revealed their true nature. Automated factories began producing Renaissance vessels at an incredible rate, using resources that had been stockpiled for centuries. The scale of the deception became clear as reports came in from across the solar system. Every major human presence beyond Earth had been part of the Renaissance project. The Luna City lunar colonies were launching defensive platforms that made the moon itself into a fortress. The research stations on Jupiter's moons were revealing themselves as coordinated military installations. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was observing the activation from the command center of the Ceres facility. The asteroid had been hollowed out over decades, creating an industrial complex the size of a small planet. The manufacturing systems were based on principles that the Kaltharans had never encountered, using programmable matter and evolutionary algorithms to create technologies that improved themselves. Command, this is Ceres Industrial. We're achieving production rates that exceed all projections. The manufacturing systems are incorporating battle data in real time and improving our vessel designs with each unit produced. Our ships are evolving faster than Kaltharan tactical systems can adapt. The evolutionary approach to technology was humanity's greatest advantage. Where the Kaltharans relied on proven designs that had dominated the galaxy for millennia, human technology was designed to learn and adapt. Every battle provided data that improved the next generation of weapons and defenses. General Hayes coordinated the global response from Sanctuary Station, her strategic oversight guiding operations across the solar system. The Kaltharan Dominion had never faced an enemy that could adapt this quickly, and their standard tactics were proving ineffective against opponents who learned from every exchange. All Renaissance forces, this is General Hayes. Phase 3 activation is complete. We now have operational capabilities across the entire solar system. The Kaltharan advantage in numbers is becoming irrelevant as our technologies prove superior in individual combat effectiveness. Elena watched the tactical displays as the scope of human capabilities became clear. What had seemed like inevitable defeat just hours earlier was transforming into something unprecedented in galactic history. Humanity wasn't just surviving the Kaltharan assault, they were winning. The transformation extended beyond military capabilities. Hidden research facilities across the solar system had been developing technologies that could restore damaged ecosystems, terraform hostile worlds, and even repair the environmental damage the Kaltharans had inflicted on Earth during their occupation. Dr. Amanda Torres was activating the environmental restoration systems from the control center beneath the Amazon basin. The facility had been disguised as an ecological research station, but its real purpose was developing technologies that could heal entire planets. The restoration systems were another example of Renaissance innovation, using adaptive materials and evolutionary algorithms to repair damage faster than it could be inflicted. Environmental command to all stations. Atmospheric processors are coming online globally. We're beginning immediate restoration of preoccupation environmental conditions. The Kaltharans poisoned our world, but we're about to show them that Earth can heal faster than they can harm it. The environmental restoration was both practical and psychological. As damaged ecosystems began healing at an accelerated rate, humans throughout the solar system could see tangible proof that the age of Kaltharan dominance was ending. The invaders had controlled Earth by making it dependent on their technology for basic survival. Renaissance systems were eliminating that dependence entirely. Captain Chen watched the transformation from the bridge of the Defiance as his small fleet continued to engage the massive Kaltharan armada. What had begun as a desperate last stand was becoming a coordinated military operation involving capabilities the enemy had never imagined. "Captain, we're receiving tactical support data from the Renaissance network," Lieutenant Martinez reported. "Our targeting systems are being updated with real-time intelligence from across the solar system. The Kaltharans have never faced coordinated resistance on this scale. The coordination was perfect because it had been planned for centuries. Every Renaissance facility was connected through communication networks that operated on principles the Kaltharans couldn't detect or interfere with. Human commanders across the solar system shared information instantaneously, creating a level of tactical coordination that made their forces far more effective than their numbers suggested." Elena realized that she was witnessing more than a military victory. The Renaissance project represented a fundamental shift in human civilization. For 3 centuries, humanity had appeared to accept subjugation while secretly developing capabilities that transcended anything their oppressors could understand. "James, this isn't just about winning a war," Elena said as she watched Renaissance vessels engaging Kaltharan fleets throughout the outer system. "We've become something new. Something they never expected." James nodded, monitoring displays that showed human forces achieving victory after victory against overwhelming odds. "The Kaltharans conquered the humans they knew 3 centuries ago, but we're not the same species anymore. We've evolved beyond their understanding." The evolution was more than technological. The Renaissance project had fundamentally changed human society, creating a civilization that could adapt and grow in ways that static galactic empires couldn't comprehend. Where the Kaltharans relied on unchanging hierarchies and proven methods, humanity had embraced constant change and improvement. Dr. Patricia Kim was analyzing the broader implications from the research facility on Ganymede. Her team had been studying galactic civilizations for decades, preparing for the day when humanity would again take its place among the stars. Their analysis suggested that the Renaissance represented something unprecedented in galactic history. Quote, "Command, this is Ganymede Research. Our analysis indicates that human adaptive capabilities are unique among known galactic species. The Kaltharan Dominion has never encountered a civilization that could evolve this rapidly while maintaining social cohesion. We may be dealing with evolutionary advantages that extend beyond technology." The evolutionary advantages were becoming apparent as the battle continued. Human forces consistently outperformed Kaltharan predictions, not through superior firepower, but through superior adaptation. Renaissance vessels learned from every encounter, becoming more effective with each engagement. Elena received a personal message from her sister Maria, who was serving aboard one of the Renaissance vessels engaging the main Kaltharan fleet. Maria's ship was part of the force that had emerged from the hidden facilities in the asteroid belt, and her reports provided insight into how the new technologies functioned in combat. "Elena, you wouldn't believe what these ships can do. We're not just fighting the Kaltharans, we're learning from them." Our weapons systems analyze their defenses and adapt in real time. Every shot we take is more effective than the last. It's like fighting with living organisms instead of machines. The living organism comparison was more accurate than Maria realized. Renaissance technology was based on biological principles, using evolutionary algorithms and adaptive materials to create systems that could grow and change. The ships weren't just machines. They were artificial life forms designed to survive and thrive in any environment. Dr. Foster provided Elena with tactical updates as the Renaissance forces gained momentum throughout the solar system. The hidden facilities were producing new vessels faster than the Kaltharans could destroy them, and each new generation incorporated improvements learned from earlier battles. Elena, we're achieving capabilities that our theoretical models suggested would take decades to develop. The Renaissance systems are exceeding all projections. The Kaltharans brought a 1,000,000-ship armada to crush 17 human vessels. They're discovering that they should have brought more. The mathematics of the conflict were changing as human forces multiplied and improved. Where the battle had begun with overwhelming numerical disadvantage, Renaissance production capabilities were rapidly equalizing the numbers, while technological advantages shifted decisively in humanity's favor. Elena looked out at the transformed landscape of Titan, where massive defensive installations now dotted the surface and streams of Renaissance vessels patrolled the surrounding space. The moon that had been humanity's most distant outpost was becoming a fortress that could defend the entire outer solar system. James, what happens next? We're winning battles we shouldn't be able to win, but the Kalthans have an entire galactic empire behind them. What happens when they bring reinforcements? James smiled with confidence Elena had never seen before. That's Phase 4, Elena. The Renaissance project wasn't designed just to defend the solar system. It was designed to take humanity to the stars. Admiral Victoria Cross stood in the war room of the newly revealed Sanctuary Prime, watching as holographic displays showed Renaissance fleets engaging Kaltharan forces across 12 star systems. 6 months had passed since humanity revealed its true capabilities, and the conflict had expanded far beyond anyone's initial expectations. The Kaltharan Dominion was mobilizing forces from across their galactic empire, but something unexpected was happening on the worlds they controlled. The first rebellion had started on Nexus 7, a mining world inhabited by the Althari, a species that had been enslaved by the Kaltharans for over 2 millennia. When news of humanity's technological revolution reached their world through captured Kaltharan communications, the Althari workers had done something unprecedented. They had stopped working. Commander Sarah Martinez was leading the first human diplomatic mission to an alien world in 3 centuries. His ship, the UNS Pathfinder, had emerged from hyperspace near Nexus 7 just as Kaltharan security forces were attempting to suppress the uprising. The sight that greeted him was unlike anything in human historical records. The Althari were tall, graceful beings with crystalline features that reflected light in mesmerizing patterns. For 2,000 years, they had labored in the deep mines of their world, extracting rare elements that powered Kaltharan technology. Their civilization had been reduced to a single function, serving their master's needs. But something had awakened in them when they learned that resistance was possible. Zara Nethys, the leader of the Althari resistance, transmitted a message that Isaiah's translation systems could barely process. Her words carried harmonics that suggested emotions humans had no names for, but the meaning was clear. We have heard of the human rebellion. We offer our knowledge in exchange for your guidance. The Kaltharans have enslaved 47 worlds. All of them are ready to rise. The intelligence that Zara provided changed everything. The Kaltharan Dominion controlled a vast empire, but their rule was maintained through fear and technological superiority rather than loyalty. Every enslaved species possessed unique capabilities that the Dominion had suppressed, forcing them to serve as specialized labor forces. But suppressed did not mean destroyed. Dr. Catherine Walsh was analyzing the data from Renaissance research facilities that had been monitoring galactic communications for decades. Hidden receivers throughout the solar system had been collecting information about Kaltharan activities across their empire, building a comprehensive picture of their strengths and vulnerabilities. Admiral Cross, the implications are staggering, Catherine reported through secure channels. The Dominion controls 47 star systems, but their administrative structure is incredibly rigid. They've never adapted their methods because they've never needed to. Each world serves a specific function, and they assume that function will continue indefinitely. The rigidity that had made the Dominion powerful was becoming a critical weakness. When the Althuri stopped mining, 17 Kaltharan industrial worlds immediately began experiencing resource shortages. When the Valiantly on the agricultural world of Harvest Prime learned about the rebellion, they began sabotaging food production systems. The entire Kaltharan economy was interconnected in ways that made it vulnerable to coordinated disruption. Captain Angela Roberts was commanding the first Renaissance vessel to operate beyond the solar system. Her ship, the UNS Evolution, was a third-generation design that incorporated lessons learned from months of combat against Kaltharan forces. Unlike the rigid warships of the Dominion, Evolution could adapt its configuration for exploration, combat, or diplomatic missions as needed. The Evolution's first mission was to establish contact with resistance movements on 3 different worlds simultaneously. Using hyperspace communication technologies that the Kaltharans couldn't detect or intercept, Angela coordinated with rebel leaders across multiple star systems in real time. This is Captain Roberts to all resistance cells. Renaissance Command has authorized the distribution of adaptive technologies to any species willing to join the liberation effort. We're not asking you to fight our war. We're offering to help you fight your own. The response was overwhelming. Within weeks, 43 of the 47 enslaved worlds had established contact with Renaissance forces. Each species brought unique capabilities that the Kaltharans had exploited but never truly understood. The Zephyri possessed natural telepathic abilities that made them perfect for coordinated tactical operations. The Molten Folk could survive in environments that would kill other species, allowing them to sabotage Kaltharan installations that were supposedly impregnable. Colonel David Park was establishing the first multi-species training facility on Europa, working with volunteers from a dozen different worlds. The facility had been hidden beneath the ice for decades, designed to accommodate the physical and cultural needs of various alien species. But theory was very different from reality. The learning curve is incredible, David reported to Renaissance Command. The Althari can process tactical information faster than our computers. The Zephyri can coordinate squadron movements through telepathic links. The Thorians can operate in zero-oxygen environments for weeks. We're not just adding numbers to our forces. We're adding capabilities we never imagined. The multi-species approach created tactical possibilities that the Kaltharans couldn't counter. Their military doctrine was based on fighting individual species with known capabilities. They had never encountered coordinated resistance from multiple worlds using combined technologies and tactics. Dr. Maria Santos had been developing new applications for Renaissance adaptive technology, working with alien scientists who brought knowledge accumulated over millennia of hidden research. The collaboration was producing innovations that surpassed anything humanity could have achieved alone. We're seeing exponential advancement in every field, Maria explained to the assembled research teams. Althari crystalline computing combined with human adaptive algorithms is creating processing systems that are literally thinking faster than light. Zephyri biotechnology merged with our evolutionary materials is producing living ships that can operate independently for years. The living ships were becoming the backbone of the Liberation Fleet. Unlike traditional vessels that required constant maintenance and supply lines, the biomechanical hybrids could repair themselves, adapt to new threats, and even reproduce under the right conditions. Each ship was unique, having evolved its own solutions to the challenges of interstellar combat. Fleet Admiral Thomas Kim was coordinating the liberation forces from the command ship UNS Renaissance, a massive vessel that served as both military headquarters and diplomatic center. The ship itself was a demonstration of multi-species cooperation, with sections designed for the environmental needs of each allied race. Intelligence reports indicate that the Kaltharan High Command is mobilizing their core battle fleets from the Galactic Center, Thomas announced to the assembled fleet commanders. They're bringing approximately 50,000 vessels to crush the rebellion before it can spread further. The numbers were daunting, but the liberation forces had advantages that pure mathematics couldn't capture. Renaissance vessels could operate independently while maintaining perfect coordination through quantum communication networks. Allied species provided tactical diversity that made fleet movements unpredictable. Most importantly, every battle provided data that improved the performance of all subsequent engagements. Commander Lisa Zhang was leading a reconnaissance mission to the Kaltharan Fortress world of Dominion Prime, the administrative center of their galactic empire. Her stealth ship, a Zephyri human hybrid design, could become virtually invisible by adapting its surface to match the background radiation of space. Command: this is Zhang reporting from the Dominion Prime system. The Kaltharan defenses are exactly what we expected, massive and overwhelming. But they're also completely static. They haven't changed their defensive posture in over 1,000 years. The static nature of Kaltharan defenses reflected their fundamental misunderstanding of the rebellion they faced. They expected traditional military assaults that could be repelled through superior firepower. They weren't prepared for the guerrilla tactics, technological adaptation, and multi-species coordination that characterized liberation operations. Dr. Jennifer Martinez was analyzing psychological profiles of Kaltharan leadership based on intercepted communications and behavioral observations. Her research suggested that the Dominion's greatest weakness might be their inability to comprehend the concept of voluntary cooperation between species. The Kaltharans rule through fear and domination because that's the only form of organization they understand, Jennifer explained to the Tactical Planning Committee. They literally cannot conceive of species working together willingly. Their strategic planning assumes that any alliance will eventually collapse due to internal conflicts. The assumption was proving catastrophically wrong. Instead of fragmenting under pressure, the Liberation Alliance was growing stronger as more species contributed their unique capabilities to the collective effort. The Kaltharans kept expecting betrayal and division that never materialized. Captain Roberto Silva was commanding the liberation of the industrial world Forge Prime, where the Molten Folk had been forced to operate massive manufacturing facilities in conditions that would kill most other species. The Liberation Fleet arrived to find that the rebels had already taken control of half the planet's production capacity. Liberation Command, this is Silva reporting from Forge Prime. The Molten Folk have converted the Kaltharan factories to produce Liberation equipment. They're manufacturing adaptive technologies faster than Renaissance facilities in the Sol system. The industrial capacity of this single world exceeds our entire previous output. The Industrial Revolution was as important as the military campaign. As each world joined the liberation, their productive capacity was redirected from serving Kaltharan interests to supporting the rebellion. The Dominion's own infrastructure was being turned against them on a galactic scale. Admiral Cross received reports from liberation operations across 17 star systems. The pattern was consistent. Wherever Renaissance forces made contact with enslaved populations, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had been suppressed for millennia were discovering capabilities they had forgotten they possessed. Dr. Patricia Kim was documenting the cultural renaissance occurring on liberated worlds. The Althari were creating crystal symphonies that could be heard across entire star systems. The Zephyri were developing biotechnology that made their worlds into living ecosystems. The Thorians were constructing architectural marvels that defied conventional physics. We're witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history, Patricia reported to the Renaissance Council. These species aren't just regaining their freedom. They're surpassing anything they achieved before the Kaltharan conquest. The experience of oppression has taught them to value cooperation and innovation in ways that isolated development never could. The cultural explosion was accompanied by technological breakthroughs that benefited all Alliance members. Shared knowledge was creating capabilities that no single species could have developed independently. The liberation wasn't just freeing enslaved worlds. It was accelerating the development of galactic civilization itself. Fleet Commander Sarah Mitchell was leading the Alliance assault on the Kaltharan military stronghold of Iron Gate, a fortress system that controlled access to the galactic core. The system was defended by over 10,000 Kaltharan warships, making it the most heavily fortified position in their empire. All ships, this is Mitchell. Iron Gate represents everything the Dominion believes about military power. Overwhelming force, static defenses, and technological superiority. Today we show them that adaptation, cooperation, and ingenuity can overcome any obstacle. The assault on Iron Gate lasted 18 hours and became the defining battle of the Liberation War. Alliance forces used tactics that the Kaltharans had never encountered, with different species coordinating their unique abilities to create combat effectiveness that transcended their individual capabilities. Zephyri telepaths coordinated fleet movements with precision that made the Alliance forces move like a single organism. Althari crystal ships generated interference patterns that disrupted Kaltharan targeting systems. Molten Folk vessels operated in the coronas of stars, attacking from directions that conventional fleets couldn't reach. Dr. Michael Torres was monitoring the battle from the Alliance command ship, analyzing the tactical innovations emerging in real time. The Alliance forces weren't just defeating superior numbers, they were redefining the nature of space combat itself. The Kaltharans are fighting according to doctrines that haven't changed in millennia, Michael observed. Our forces are inventing new tactics every hour. Every engagement is teaching us something that makes us more effective in the next encounter. The fall of Iron Gate opened the path to the galactic core and sent shockwaves throughout the Dominion. For the first time in their history, the Kaltharans faced the possibility of total defeat. Their response was predictable but catastrophic. They began destroying worlds, rather than lose control of them. Commander Angela Davis was leading evacuation operations on the mining world of Deep Core when Kaltharan forces began orbital bombardment. The Renaissance vessels arrived to find the planet's surface being systematically destroyed, but the Althari population had already disappeared into the crystal caves that honeycombed their world. Command, this is Davis. The Kaltharans are scorching Deep Core, but the Althari have adapted. They've turned their entire planet into a fortress. The crystal formations are channeling the bombardment energy into their defense systems. The Kaltharans are actually making them stronger. The scorched earth tactics backfired because the Kaltharans didn't understand the species they were trying to destroy. The Althari could survive underground indefinitely, using the bombardment energy to power their civilization. The Zephyri could evacuate their populations to other worlds through biotechnology that created living starships. The Thorians could exist in the vacuum of space itself. General Patricia Hayes was coordinating the final phase of the liberation campaign from Sanctuary Prime, now revealed as humanity's primary military command center. The holographic display showed Alliance forces advancing on 3 separate fronts toward the Kaltharan home system. All liberation forces, this is General Hayes. The Kaltharan Dominion is collapsing faster than our most optimistic projections. Their rigid command structure cannot adapt to multi-front warfare against opponents they don't understand. Prepare for the final assault on the home system. The final assault began with something unprecedented in galactic warfare, a diplomatic transmission. Alliance representatives offered the Kaltharans a choice: surrender and join the galactic community as equals, or face complete defeat and the dismantling of their empire. Emperor Korthak, the supreme ruler of the Kaltharan Dominion, responded with the same arrogance that had characterized his species for millennia. He declared that no inferior species could challenge Kaltharan supremacy and ordered his remaining forces to defend the home system to the last ship. The Battle of Kalthar lasted 3 days and ended an era of galactic oppression that had lasted over 10,000 years. Alliance forces surrounded the Kaltharan home system, with vessels representing 47 different species, each contributing their unique capabilities to the coordinated assault. Captain Chen, now commanding the flagship UNS Defiance, led the final charge against the Imperial Palace orbital platform. The 17 ships that had begun humanity's rebellion had multiplied into a fleet of thousands, supported by allies who had once been enemies of all free species. This is Chen to all Alliance forces. Today we finish what we started when 17 human ships faced impossible odds. Today we prove that cooperation will always triumph over oppression, that adaptation will always defeat rigidity, and that freedom will always overcome tyranny. The surrender of Emperor Korthak marked the beginning of a new age for galactic civilization. The Alliance of Free Worlds established principles of cooperation and mutual benefit that replaced the domination and exploitation that had characterized interstellar politics for millennia. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as the Alliance's chief scientist, stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, watching as species that had been enemies for thousands of years worked together to rebuild damaged worlds and share their knowledge freely. "James, look at what we've accomplished," Elena said to her old colleague, now the Alliance's Director of Technological Development. 6 months ago, humanity was a conquered species hiding advanced technology. Today, we're leading a galactic civilization based on principles the Kaltharans never understood. James nodded, watching as Althari crystal ships worked alongside Zephyri bio-vessels and human Renaissance craft to construct massive space habitats where refugees from devastated worlds could begin new lives. The Kaltharans outnumbered us 1,000 to 1, but they never understood that numbers aren't everything. Innovation? adaptation and cooperation can overcome any numerical disadvantage. The transformation of galactic civilization continued as former slave worlds contributed their suppressed knowledge to the collective benefit of all species. Technologies that had been hidden for millennia were shared freely, creating capabilities that no single species could have achieved alone. Admiral Cross presided over the establishment of the Galactic Council, where representatives from every world would have equal voices in determining the future of interstellar civilization. The headquarters was built at the former site of Iron Gate, transformed from a symbol of oppression into a beacon of cooperation. Citizens of the galaxy, Admiral Cross announced at the Council's first session, today marks the end of the Age of Empires and the beginning of the Age of Alliances. No species will ever again be forced to serve another. No world will ever again be stripped of its resources without consent. We move forward together, or we do not move forward at all. The principles established by the Galactic Council spread throughout the galaxy as news of the liberation reached species beyond the former Dominion's borders. Other empires and federations began adopting similar cooperative structures, realizing that the alternative was eventually facing the same fate as the Kaltharans. Captain Roberts, now commanding exploration fleets that ventured beyond the known galaxy, sent reports of first contact with species that had never known interstellar war. These civilizations were eager to learn from the Alliance's experience and contribute their own knowledge to the growing network of cooperation. Admiral Cross, this is Roberts reporting from the Andromeda Contact Zone. We've established communication with the Spiral Confederation, a group of over 200 species that have maintained peace for over 50,000 years. They're offering to share defensive technologies that could protect the entire galactic cluster from external threats. The expansion of cooperative principles beyond the home galaxy created possibilities that even the Renaissance Project's designers had never imagined. Humanity had gone from hiding in their own solar system to helping establish peace across multiple galactic clusters in less than 2 years. Dr. Foster, now elderly but still active in Alliance research, concluded his final report on the transformation of galactic civilization with observations that would guide policy for generations to come. The lesson of the Liberation War is not that good triumphs over evil or that technology overcomes oppression. The lesson is that diversity, cooperation, and adaptation will always defeat uniformity, domination, and stagnation. The Kaltharans fell because they could not change. The Alliance succeeded because change is our greatest strength. As Elena watched the construction of the first transgalactic communication network, designed to connect civilizations across the entire known universe, she reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. Humanity had faced extinction but had chosen to evolve instead. The Kaltharans had possessed overwhelming power but had refused to adapt. The final score wasn't about numbers, Elena said to the assembled Alliance leaders as they prepared to make contact with civilizations in distant galaxies. It was never about being outnumbered 1,000 to 1. It was about understanding that true strength comes from growing together rather than standing alone. The transmission to distant galaxies carried a simple message that embodied everything the Alliance had learned. This is the Alliance of Free Worlds, representing all species in the Milky Way galaxy. We offer friendship, cooperation, and mutual benefit to any civilization that shares our commitment to freedom and growth. We have learned that no challenge is too great when faced together, and no odds are too overwhelming when met with unity and innovation. The response, when it came years later from civilizations millions of light-years distant, confirmed that the principles discovered during humanity's impossible victory had universal application. Across the cosmos, species were learning that cooperation could overcome any obstacle, that adaptation could defeat any rigidity, and that even the most overwhelming odds could be transformed into opportunities for growth and unity. 25 years after the fall of the Kaltharan Dominion, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood before the Cosmic Assembly, addressing representatives from over 3,000 civilizations spanning 17 galaxies. The Great Hall orbited a neutron star at the center of the universe's largest peaceful confederation, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of distant supernovae. "Fellow beings," Elena began, her words transmitted across space-time to civilizations she could barely comprehend. "Today marks the anniversary of an impossible victory that changed everything we thought we knew about power, about survival, about what it means to face overwhelming odds. The temporal archives projected images from that first battle when 17 human ships had faced 17,000 Kaltharan vessels. Young beings from species that hadn't even existed during the Liberation War watched in wonder as the tactical displays showed how adaptation and unity had overcome brute force. Captain Marcus Chen, now Fleet Admiral of the Cosmic Defense Corps, observed from the gallery. His hair had gone silver, but his eyes still held the determination that had carried humanity through its darkest hour. The Defiance, his original command, now served as a museum ship where young beings from across the cosmos came to learn about the principles that had reshaped galactic civilization. The mathematics seem simple, Elena continued, gesturing to the holographic displays. 1,000 to 1 odds. Any rational analysis would have predicted total annihilation within hours. But we discovered something that day that has echoed across the universe ever since. Numbers tell only part of the story. Dr. James Foster, now Director of Universal Adaptation Sciences, monitored the broadcast from his laboratory on Terra Nova, humanity's first colony world beyond the solar system. His research teams included beings whose very existence defied conventional physics, creatures from dimensions that operated on entirely different mathematical principles. Their collaboration had produced technologies that seemed indistinguishable from magic. The Zephyri Collective had evolved beyond physical form, existing as pure thought patterns that could inhabit any compatible technology. The Althari had merged with their crystal worlds, becoming living planets that could traverse interstellar space at will. The Molten Folk had learned to inhabit stars themselves, becoming gardeners of stellar evolution. Elena's voice carried to the edge of known space, where exploration fleets pushed beyond the boundaries of mapped reality. We learned that diversity creates strength in ways that uniformity never can. We learned that adaptation overcomes raw power. We learned that when beings choose to stand together, no force in the universe can stand against them. The Nexus Builders, a species discovered in the Andromeda Galaxy, had constructed pathways between dimensions that allowed instantaneous travel across infinite distances. They had joined the Confederation not for protection or resources, but because they had never encountered anything as fascinating as a civilization based on cooperative evolution. Commander Sarah Martinez, now heading the Department of Impossible Solutions, had dedicated her career to analyzing conflicts that seemed unwinnable. Her department had resolved 17 galactic wars, stopped 43 cosmic catastrophes, and prevented the collapse of 6 different dimensional barriers. Their secret was always the same approach that had saved humanity: find a way to adapt, find a way to cooperate, find a way to grow stronger through unity. The Void Shepherds, beings from the space between galaxies, had initially approached the Confederation as a potential threat. They possessed the power to extinguish entire star clusters, making them potentially the most dangerous force anyone had ever encountered. But the Confederation's response had been to offer friendship and ask what they needed. The Shepherds had never experienced voluntary cooperation and had become the Confederation's most protective guardians. Elena concluded her address with words that had become the unofficial motto of the Cosmic Confederation. When 17 ships faced 17,000, the outcome was never really about the numbers. It was about the choice to never surrender hope, never stop adapting, and never face the darkness alone. The anniversary celebration lasted for days across multiple dimensions, but Elena found herself drawn to a quiet observation deck overlooking the memorial garden. Each flower represented a species that had joined the Confederation, their genetic patterns woven together to create ecosystems that could exist nowhere else in nature. Admiral Chen joined her at the viewing portal, both of them watching as young beings from dozens of worlds played together in the garden, their laughter creating harmonics that could be heard across several dimensions. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd surrendered that day?" Chen asked. Elena smiled, watching a young Althari child teach a human toddler how to make crystal formations sing. The Kaltharans would have won a battle, but they would have lost the universe. Someone else would have eventually discovered what we learned. The mathematics of cooperation always defeat the mathematics of domination, given enough time. The newest reports from the exploration fleets spoke of contact with civilizations in parallel universes, beings who had developed along completely different evolutionary paths, but who recognized the value of the Confederation's principles. Reality itself seemed to be expanding as more forms of existence chose cooperation over conflict. Dr. Foster's latest research suggested that consciousness itself was evolving, that the act of choosing unity over division was literally changing the fundamental nature of existence. Beings who joined the Confederation didn't just gain allies, they gained new forms of awareness that transcended anything they had previously experienced. The celebration concluded with the traditional Harmony broadcast, where every member civilization of the Confederation sent a single note across space and time. The combined song created patterns of energy that could heal damaged worlds, restart dying stars, and open pathways to previously unreachable dimensions. Elena listened to the cosmic symphony and thought about the journey from that desperate moment when 17 ships had faced impossible odds. The Confederation now included beings who existed as living mathematics, creatures made of crystallized time, and entities who thought in languages that took centuries to speak a single word. The Kaltharans had the larger fleet, Elena whispered to the stars, but we had the larger imagination. As the Harmony broadcast reached its crescendo, new signals appeared on the detection networks. Somewhere in the vast reaches of unexplored space, other civilizations were picking up the transmission and sending responses. The Confederation was still growing, still evolving, still proving that cooperation could overcome any challenge. The final image transmitted across the cosmos showed the memorial at the site of that first impossible victory. 17 crystalline spires reached toward the stars, each one representing a ship that had refused to surrender when victory seemed impossible. But at the center stood a simple plaque with words that had become universal truth. They outnumbered us 1,000 to 1. It still wasn't enough. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.